So the mission statement was developed after talking to dozens and dozens and dozens of nurses. That mission statement was put together by nurses after meetings and talking and what is important to us. So that will tell you what our goals are.
Based on my understanding is that the nurses who voted in the union are concerned about their, some, whether it's hours or wages or working conditions or so forth, that they have expressed some concerns about their work here at Porter and the environment, and they felt as if organizing themselves into a union would provide them with some additional mechanism or leverage or being together in order to address their concerns.
I used to work at Porter. Porter just started a nurses union. And again, I'm not there anymore, but it was a very similar conversation that the nurses at Porter had with union representatives. They felt like they were not being listened to by hospital administration around things like equal pay, overtime hours that were becoming mandatory, staffing ratios, and just in general working conditions that weren't very favorable for them.
So one of the things that the union promotes for me is making sure that there's always that safe nursing to patient ratio.
I think it will, just by definition, create a third party in our conversations with our nurses. Without a union, the way that we've been able to work with our nursing staff historically is if we have an issue with a nurse, or we want to have a conversation about a work topic or a scheduling issue or a pay issue, or maybe there's a disciplinary issue, or the nurse would like to have some extra time off to be with their child, or to have a special schedule for holidays. We would sit down in a room like this, the two of us, and we would have that conversation. In a nursing environment, that's not allowed anymore. There has to be either a third person representing the union involved in that conversation, or we may have to actually tell the union person that this is what we want to have happen, and sort of have that three-way communication.
If you have an issue with your manager that you don't think something is going right, you can go to the manager with your union steward, and there's a formal process for everything, instead of just, it's kind of like having a parent sort of watching over everything all the time. And some people really like that, and some people really don't like that.
That's an absolute myth. Who will be at that negotiating table? There will be representatives for the hospital, including their lawyer. When you say union as a third party, that is a myth. The union is the nurses. So who will be on the other side of that bargaining table? The nurses.
It's not something people talk about a lot, I think, because the overwhelming opinion is that you should be part of the union, so I'm sure they probably feel like they don't want to express their opinion very openly very often.
Fear of the unknown. And people, nurses and others, they just don't know. They've never been in a union, they don't know anyone who's been in a union, and it's fear. I'm confident that once we get our contract and nurses see improved working conditions, that they'll be, this is a good thing.
I think that's probably what most people would say was their biggest complaint about having the union, is that it's a very structured way of thinking about and doing things in the workplace. And if that's not how you like to work, then that makes it a little difficult at times.
Perhaps they felt as if we could work things out together, one-on-one. Perhaps they didn't want to have to pay the dues.
We will be setting up a budget committee. The budget committee will survey all of the nurses to find out what is important for us to do as a union. Do we want to send out newsletters? Do we want to become involved in legislative issues? So we will figure out what is important to us by surveying our nurses. The nurses will come up with a budget and figure out what our dues will be.
For us, it's a percentage of our pay. So it comes out, I want to say it's not 10%, it's much less than that, but it just changed in January and I'm not sure what the new number is. So let's say it's 2%. So based on what your income is and how many hours you work, it will come out automatically. You don't actually see it, it'll show up as a line item on your paycheck.
Then probably at a minimum, they're going to be paying $500 or $600 a year, plus any other fees that go along with that. So I suspect that I more than suspect, because I was actually in some of the educational sessions that we had with the nurses where we tried to give them our point of view. When we showed the slide that said your dues would be at least $500 or $600 or more, you know, there was one nurse sitting in this chair who said, well, that's not too much money, you know, for maybe having better work conditions or a raise or whatever. But the nurse right next to her said, that's a washer and a dryer. And that's what I need right now. So that's where I'd like to put my $600.
If you opt out of our union, you still have to pay a fee, which makes people angry. So I think that more often than not, unless you have a very strong philosophical desire not to be in a union, most people will join. But there is an option not to, and I work with several people who actually aren't members of the union.
I was actually pleased about during the union campaign before the vote is that there wasn't a lot of real negative stuff in the community, in the newspaper. There weren't a lot of letters to the editor. There were not a lot of, you know, big full-page advertisements saying, you know, support the nurses, you know, the hospital is negative, and you know, there was a little bit of that. But for the most part, I think we kept it professional and we kept it on, you know, respectful.
We all, administration and nurses, we all have the same goal. We all have the goal of wanting to take the best possible care of our patients. And that's what we do every day. And we get along, we work fine, we always have, and we continue, I'm sure we will continue that way.
Even though we may have a difference of opinion about the union and be on sort of in a negotiation, which by definition is two different parties with two different perspectives, that we can do that respectfully and we can do it with integrity.
I don't feel any animosity towards my supervisors at all, which I think is wonderful. Yeah, people are pretty tactful about if they're anti or aren't happy about it. They're not like stomping around angry. Everyone's very cordial to one another.
Again, we're a small community hospital. We see each other at Greg's. We see each other on Main Street. You know, I've been here 23 years. You know, I like pretty much everybody who works here, and I want to continue to like them and respect them and be able to have a good conversation on the street and not feel adversarial. I don't want to feel any tension. I think in order for us to be positive and for this to be a good thing, both sides have to acknowledge that, you know, we have to move forward as one big organization and take care of all of our employees, take care of all of our patients.
A perfect hospital, actually, I think we can get there at Porter with our union.
It would look a lot like Porter. It would be small. It would have professionals that live in the community that are taking care of people that they see at the grocery store. I think a perfect hospital is one that's small enough to take care of neighbors in a neighborly way, but big enough to be able to take care of really sick people or emergencies in the middle of the night.
So if somehow I could take the small town community feel and put it in a big teaching hospital where everybody got along, because nurses are hard to get along with sometimes, that would probably be my ideal hospital. It's more about people than it is about the union or about anything else.
I'm not just a nurse. I live in Middlebury here in Addison County. This is my hospital. It's where I go for my health care. It's where I send my family for their health care. So it's really important to me.
The main goal is administration, nurses, everybody wants the best for Porter Hospital and the community.
It's an emotional topic. It is a topic that is new to us, and so we're still trying to figure it out and learn ourselves. And we hope we don't make any mistakes, but we probably will. But I think, again, in the end, the most important thing that all of us need to focus on is the mission of this organization, which is to provide excellent care to the people who come here for health care. And that's whether it's Helen Porter or the hospital or the practices. Nothing is more important than that.